I still hear his voice in my dreams. The king's voice. But not the voice I remember from the day he ruled. No, this was different. It was full of anger, twisted, like he was trapped somewhere, waiting. I didn't believe the stories at first. Not until I saw it with my own eyes. And now, every night, I wonder if I'll wake up to him standing at the foot of my bed. It all started when I was a young boy. My village, like every other in the kingdom, lived under the rule of King Kofi. He was a wise leader, revered by all who knew him. People traveled from far lands to seek his counsel. His word was law, and everyone respected him, even feared him a little. But there were whispers, too. Whispers that the king's wisdom wasn't just from study or experience, it was from something older. He had these advisors. Elders who weren't just old men but seemed to have a strange, otherworldly power. There was one, an old woman, who was said to have been with the king from the time he was a boy. Some even said she had cursed him with power from the spirits. I didn't think much of it. At the time, I was just a child who thought the world was all good. One evening, the king called a great feast to celebrate the harvest. I had the honor of being one of the servants that night, a small task, but it meant I would be able to see him close up, watch how he carried himself. And I did. I saw how the crowd cheered for him, how his face was calm and strong, how the people followed his every word. But there was something wrong about the way his eyes glowed when he looked at them. Not the eyes of a man who ruled by wisdom, but of someone who had made a pact. A pact I would soon learn about in the most horrifying way. Later that night, after the feast, I was tasked with cleaning the royal halls. As I walked down the long corridors, I heard soft whispers coming from the king's private chambers. At first, I thought it was the wind. But then I recognized his voice. It was muffled, as if he were speaking through a cloth. I stood frozen, unsure whether I should leave, but something pulled me closer. I crept to the door, barely making a sound. Through a crack in the wood, I saw him, King Kofi, sitting at a large wooden table, his back to me. But what really caught my attention wasn't the king. It was the shadows. The room was dark, but there were shadows that moved on their own. They twisted, shaped like people, like creatures, whispering back to him. And in front of him, on the table, was something old and covered in cloth. Suddenly, I heard the king speak again, but this time, the words weren't in any language I understood. It was like he was talking to something beyond the world. The shadows grew larger, and I swear I saw one of them stretch out towards him. The room grew colder, and the air turned thick. I could feel it. The power. And then, the door creaked, and he turned. His eyes met mine. For a second, I thought my heart had stopped. His face didn't look like the king anymore. It was twisted, dark, like the spirit had taken over. He smiled, but not in a friendly way. This was the smile of something ancient. Something evil. I ran, and I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping for air. I didn't tell anyone what I saw that night. Not then. Not even when the king started acting differently. People said he became more distant, that he spent more time in his chambers, and that the air around the palace had grown thick with a strange tension. Months later, the kingdom fell into chaos. Crops failed, sickness spread, and there was unrest everywhere. People blamed the king's strange behavior. They said he had angered the spirits, that the pact he made had turned against him. Then came the night he died. The people say it wasn't a normal death. Some say the spirits claimed him, others say he was cursed to suffer for eternity. But the strangest thing happened after his death. The whispers didn't stop. They continued, even in the quiet of the night. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I can hear his voice, low and angry, calling out to me from the shadows. I don't know what he did or who he made his deal with, but I know one thing for sure, King Kofi didn't die alone. And now, neither can I.